Housing prices soared by over 355% between 2000 and 2021, while the median nominal income increased by only 113%. Add to this, over one-third of Canadian households own a home with a mortgage, and of those, two-thirds have trouble meeting their financial commitments. It is no wonder why so many young Canadians are starting to forget, even in their wildest dreams, the possibility to own in a near future. So today, we'll take a look at what is the current state of the Canadian real estate market and what are the forecasts for 2025. And you will also discover how you can prepare yourself to face this quite uncertain market. But first, to be able to understand what has caused this housing crisis in Canada, we need to jump back a few decades ago in the 80s. At that time, policies were written to restructure the housing system by also cultivating a culture of home ownership and market supremacy. Back in that time, we didn't know, but that was the roots of the current housing crisis that we are now facing. Back in the 60s and in the 70s, Canada had one of the strongest housing welfare system, but it all changed in 1993. Indeed, at that year, the federal government stopped funding housing social programs. This made the system switch towards a more commodified one that encouraged home responsibility. And in fact, this modification was driven by two important factors. First, it would be that the private market would be more efficient in providing great housing, with the idea that older homes will become affordable as newer ones are built in the process called filtering. On paper, it looks pretty great, but in fact, there is one big problem. In reality, older houses can become quite expensive over time because notably of important renovations, which makes affordability ties more to the land compared to the property's value. The second factor would be that homeownership promotes autonomy and that it reduces the reliance to government to produce great quality assets. But once again, the reality is quite different. All of this made that in the 90s, housing financialization intensified when the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation shift from building homes to ensuring mortgage. By doing so, this organization have helped the access to get new mortgage, meaning that it has increased the demand for new mortgage and for new properties, which has also created another problem, which is the real estate speculation. In the end, this has made real estate becoming a great vehicle for asset building and capital accumulation. This is why homeownership went from 63% to over 69% between 1991 and 2011. Meanwhile, we've also seen the median average prices increase by over 152%, while the income grew by only 7%. This also made the household debt soared, where we've seen that between 2002 and 2017, the debt-to-income ratios increased from 109% to over 173%. However, since then, we've seen the house ownership fall. At that time, we didn't realize what was the impact of such an increase in the housing price until the pandemic came. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen a rapid surge in the housing price from west to east, where we've seen that the housing market has become quite unaffordable for most people. Since that period, we still feel all the economic pressures from the COVID-19 combined with rising construction costs, an aging workforce, and population growth that have heightened the problem related to housing affordability. But now, to prepare yourself for what could be to come over the next couple of years when it comes to the real estate market in Canada, you need to understand that there are three important factors that will come to determine the price of real estate. The first one is affordability, so the competing pace of home prices and income growth. In 2003, the average annual income from Canadians was slightly below $36,000, but 20 years later, this income has been able to reach only about $62,600, or basically an increase of about 74%. But throughout that same period, we've seen that the average home price in Canada went from $207,000 to over $678,000, or a 227% increase. This means that in 2003, the average home price was about 5.8 times more than the average annual income from Canadians, and by 2023, it was 10.8 times. In the 40 years between 1980 to 2020, the difference has been even more astonishing. Indeed, the average home price increased by about 746%, while the median household income rose by only 295%. This leads us to the second important criteria, which is the supply. So what is the housing construction versus the population growth? And it is no surprise for anyone that we are currently in a big shortage of housing construction here in Canada compared to the current population growth. In 2023, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation even estimated that the country requires an additional 3.5 million housing units to be built to restore affordability by 2030. So that's not only 3.5 million units that need to be built by 2030, but this is an additional 3.5 million units compared to the current production. In 2021, the housing production was slightly above 271,000 houses produced per year. This means that even by doubling the pace of this current production, we won't be able to reach the threshold fixed for 2030. Finally, the third and last criteria is financing, which includes the tightening mortgage guidelines, disposable income, and the debt levels. Over the past 20 years, as you can see, there have been a lot of important modifications in terms of the mortgage guidelines, such as a shorter amortization period and a new minimum required down payment. In terms of the saving of Canadians over the past couple of decades, we can notice an important decrease and diminution of the percentage of money saved by Canadians over that period, which was around 16% in the 80s, and that is now only slightly above 6%. This isn't surprising in a country where the cost of living has literally been exploding over the past couple of years, where the mortgage payments are taking a lot more of the budget of many people. And when it comes to the debt not related to housing, we can notice a rapid surge over the past 30 years of this debt, which obviously impact negatively the borrowing capacity of many Canadians. So there are many reasons to be afraid of the current state of this Canadian real estate market, but the more positive news is the fact that there are great outlooks that are predict for the next couple of years. Indeed, there is a consensus that the real estate market in Canada in 2025 will only grow by about 5%, which is quite lower compared to its past 10 years average. This would be justified mainly by lower mortgage rates, change to mortgage rules, and a more active market. If you ask me, this is pretty surprising in my personal opinion, because usually what happens, and in terms of finance, when we decrease the policy rates or the interest rate, it makes that there are more demand on the market. And usually with more demand on this market, it means that the housing price tends to surge. However, if the growth of the real estate market in Canada slows down in 2025, this will be a pretty good news for many young Canadians. So in that case, the question that can be asked for you would be, how can you prepare yourself to enter in this competitive market? One of the first things that you can obviously do to put a lot of chances on your side would be to find a way to increase and boost your income. In our modern era, there are multiple ways to boost your income, notably with great side hustle. And so by being able to generate more money every single month, this will definitely help you in your quest to buy your first house. In Canada, we are quite lucky because we have multiple government programs that help us to save, such as the tax-free savings account, the RRSP, or the FHSA, all of which can be quite helpful for you if you're looking to buy your first property. It is also important to live below your means, meaning that you will cut all the unnecessary expenses to save enough money for your initial down payment. You could also work on increasing your credit rating by notably paying all the high interest debt that you currently have. This will be essential for you, especially if you're looking to have your first loan. And knowing that the real estate market in Canada is extremely competitive, you need to be prepared for it. This means that before looking for any type of houses, make sure to be pre-approved to your bank for a mortgage, which can greatly increase your chance to acquire a property. But now on your side, if you are looking to find my personal story on how I've been able to buy my first triplex at 24 years old, well, check out the video. That's gonna be right over here, and I will see you soon. Peace.